African Development Bank, in collaboration with the Africa Guarantee Fund and other donor countries, have approved $1.2 billion for women-led enterprises in 32 countries across Africa. This was revealed yesterday in Lagos by the Vice President for Agriculture, Human and Social Development, AFDB, Dr. Beth Dunford, the kickoff at the AFAWA Finance Series in Nigeria. This high-level conference will be followed by a 2-day training that will enable banks introspect on their product and service offerings through a gender-smart lens and help the needs of women entrepreneurs. Joining us now is Group Director of Structured Finance, African Guarantee Fund, Nishdeep Sethi. Thank you, Nishdeep, for being here.
Thank you, Abby, for having me.
Oh, absolutely. You're most welcome. Very exciting initiative. But tell us a bit more about AFAWA and how it seeks to address gender equity in this sense.
Thank you. So AFAWA, which stands for the Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, it's an initiative that has been led by the African Development Bank in conjunction with the G7 countries, including Sweden and Netherlands, and in partnership with the African Guarantee Fund. And the initiative is focused on supporting women entrepreneurs and enabling them, empowering them to really be able to access finance, to grow their business, and to empower them financially and economically.
How has this been received so far? I know this just pretty much came out. What have you observed in terms of the response to it?
So, as you know, as you said earlier, we're here for the AFAWA Finance Series in Nigeria, and we've done this previously in 4 other countries. And the reception of the events, the program itself has been very positive. The women entrepreneurs, the financial institutions, the enablers that work within the ecosystem are all very excited. We have a lot of excitement. I think yesterday in the conference, the energy in the room was, it was electric. You could feel it. So definitely very positive, very strong support from the ecosystem of, the entrepreneurship arena and even financial sector.
Well, that's very refreshing to hear. I mean, it's an exciting initiative in its own right. But let's talk about the size of your fund and support for women in SMEs and at what cost or interest to them.
So the AFAWA initiative is an initiative that's looking to unlock up to $5 billion of financing for women entrepreneurs. Up until 2026, so it's huge. It's good, and in terms of the cost and the interest rates, the AFAWA initiative works very closely through the financial system, through the banks, and we look at the cost of the funding through the banks. So we work with the banks to ensure that they're not the risk that they are putting across on the SMEs is not overpriced, So it's really sort of capacitating them and training them to make them to understand the risk and price and cost the funding accordingly. So there's no set cost. I think each country has its own economic situation. So it's more to do with the risk perception and to really ensure that the financial institutions understand that banking women is not as risky as it's perceived to be. So that way, the high cost that are currently in the market will not be there because it's a better understanding of the segment.
Right, and that sensitization is extremely important to begin with, to start with. But let's look at your partnerships, the partnerships under AFAWA, under this initiative. What do they bring to the table and who are they?
So as I said, it's the African Development Bank, which is the main lead on this initiative. They're the main partners that we have on the initiative. They're backed up by the G7 countries, including Sweden and the Netherlands. So we have a lot of support from that side. On the ground, we work very closely. We have partnerships with financial institutions. At the moment, we're over 60 financial institutions that we've partnered with just for AFAWA, and also the enablers, the women enablers, a lot of incubators and programs that support upskilling women and empowering them to be able to access that credit and also to be able to deploy it. Yeah, so we have a range of partners in the ecosystem that support the initiative.
That's really healthy. Well, let's look at the market dynamics now and talk about the growth potential and opportunities that you see in this market. If women enterprises are adequately funded, what do you see happening in terms of how this kind of injection will help these enterprises?
That's a great question. So in Nigeria, as most other African countries, women form almost 50% of the economy. So, I mean, you're literally creating economic empowerment for 50% of your population. So it's definitely going to lead to double-digit growth in your GDP. We have an analogy that was used yesterday at the conference by our CEO about a bird cannot fly with one wing. You need both your wings to fly at your best. So same for any economy. If you have 50% of the economy that is excluded from the financial sector, you can imagine that's 50% of income and growth that's excluded. So from where we stand, and this is why the AFAWA initiative is so important, and supporting women entrepreneurs is so important, because it's beyond a social good. It's beyond doing something charitable. This is economic growth. This is what we need to do to get that leap in the GDP rates and the growth rates of African countries, and Nigeria included.
And talking about that, at a government level, what kind of support would you like to see for women SMEs? Do you believe they're doing enough to start with? Mm-hmm. And if they're not, what more would you like to see happen?
I think we work very closely with governments in terms of enabling environments and, seeing where we can partner together and where we can support each other to really make the ecosystem more conducive for women to be able to operate, to be able to have their businesses not only start up, but even flourish and scale. So, it's really to support, to work together to support programs like AFAWA. Nigeria itself has so many programs that are dedicated to women. So the government is already doing so well in supporting those. So just to continue to do that and to really scale these programs, to scale these initiatives and to help to create a conducive environment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if we want to get a little more granular and look at the stats, what would you say the current funding gap is for women-owned businesses in Nigeria currently?
So I think in Nigeria, I'm not entirely sure, but in Africa alone, it's $42 billion. So it's very huge. And even with the AFAWA initiative, looking to seek to unlock $5 billion is really a drop in the ocean. There's still a lot more that needs to be done. The funding gap is huge.
It's staggering.
Yeah.
That's a big number.
It's a big number. It's a big number. And Nigeria being such a significantly sized economy, you can imagine the majority of the gap could be here as well. But it depends, different countries being more economically ahead and others not. But for us, it's really important to have a lot more of such programs and initiatives to support women entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. And of course, with programs like this, initiatives like this, we're getting closer, inching closer to closing that gap, making that figure come down.
Yes.
Significantly, we hope.
Significantly, yes.
All right, Nishdeep, we have so much to talk about, but such little time. I want to thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
All right.